Okay, hello, welcome to video 2. So as I said before at the start of the first video, what we're going to do in this one is essentially just a couple of variations to kind of open your stitches out and make a little bit of a pattern, and then we're going to do a border. And that's it. It'll be easy. I hope you're enjoying it so far. I hope you're enjoying the stitches. It's a nice way to kind of get a little bit of a taste of what needle lace making is, and fingers crossed if you've made it this far, you're enjoying it a little bit. So thank you. Let's get into it. Now what we're going to do is fill out this second section. That's all done. So we are going to just come along the coordinate again. So these red threads are going to come in handy all over again. Just going to move our thread around. So I'm going to go under that. We're going to cover all of this later, so it doesn't matter if we add a few stitches. Right up to the tip, and we're ready to turn around and work out that section. So here we go to fill this next section. We're going to start just with a row of buttonhole stitch in between each one of those stitches. So I'm going to just find the space in between with the needle. Nice little foundational row. Remember the edges around here get quite messy, and that is not a problem. I'm just going to cut this one off so that it doesn't get in the way again. Remember, I could cut that one off because we've held it into place with some stitches here. Never want to cut things off too close to the job if they're not covered by stitches. So we're just essentially building this section up just a little bit by adding this second row of buttonhole stitch. It's going to make a little bit of a nice kind of visible central vein. Okay, so you can see we've made that lovely kind of central vein just by doubling up. So now, because we've got a buttonhole going that way and a buttonhole going that way, we've made this lovely kind of center line over that coordinate, which I love. Now what we're going to do, I am going to make a cord, but this time what we're going to do is do a twisted buttonhole stitch. But we're going to leave a bit of space in between each one. So it's going to be a nice sort of open stitch. Because we are going to be working this with a little bit of space in between, what we want to do, rather than having the cord come straight across like that, what I'm going to do for this is anchor it down at a few points. And then I think I'm actually going to change my thread as well, just because it's getting a little short. But rather than bringing the cord all the way across, we need something that's going to make sure that it stays attached to the row above. So I'm going to just into every second or third stitch, we're going to just pass the needle through. And that's going to give it real anchor points to that row. Because the stitch is so open, we don't want it to sort of accidentally get half filled by a cord, you know. We want to really concentrate on the negative space, because that's essentially what makes a piece of lace, all of that negative space. So there you can see, now we've got a cord going across, but it is all tied in there. Now, let's risk it. I think this one can be long enough to do another row. If not, we'll just unpick it. So, you know, it's fine. You can usually change threads in the middle of the row, but in an open work stitch, it's a little trickier. So anyway, let's wing it and find out. Now, with this stitch, what we're going to do is skip the first one, and I'm going to do a twisted buttonhole stitch into the second. Just like that. skip the next one, twisted buttonhole in there. So you can see we're just getting a nice little open grid going. Now, got my new thread cut ready, and we're going under and under. Because you're changing your thread. So now I've got 2 cords to work over. And because this one's sitting up quite close to the coordinate there, we're just gonna avoid that one. We don't want to add too many stitches now. I'm gonna go straight into the next one, just so we're not cramming in too many threads there. So across to there. So just sort of play that by eye, just where things are starting to hit the coordinate. Don't worry about the sort of maths of it all, just try and fit in stitches where they naturally fit. So I'm going to do this 2 into each gap, considering we skipped 1 each time. So to kind of mathematically build it back up again, we need 2 buttonhole stitches in each one. So that's a lovely option to do a little bit of open stuff there. I'm going to just come across now and we'll do those veins for the last section again. Just open out the edge again. But I'm going to do them a little closer together, so we might do them every second stitch, just so that you can try something else nice. Obviously we're still hitting the coordinate here, so there's no point putting a vein in here because there's no room. Remember, none of this is prescriptive. You're just playing with these stitches as you see fit. Open them out how you like. Add veins, add more solid areas. Now I'm going to add a little vein, so down here. Yeah, however you feel. I've done 2. Now I'm going to come up and make a little vein. There we have it. Just get buttonholed to the end. And they're all our ground stitches. Next thing we're going to do is add a little border. But first we've got to take care of the end of this thread. Now this is what a coordinate is so brilliant for. All you have to do, no knot or anything, we're going to weave all the ends in later. And I'm just running the thread around the coordinate. Doesn't have to go far, just enough to make sure it's sort of woven in. There you go. So that's that tail taken care of, and I'm going to cut that straight off because we're going to cover that up. So it's time to add a border. So no needle lace is ever complete without a border. It is one of the most important sort of parts of your lace. So you've always got a coordinate, you've always got ground stitches, you've always got a border. Those are essentially the 3 components of any piece of needle lace. So now we're at that 3rd step. I'm going to change colour slightly because it's going to add a little bit of something nice. So we're going to use this nice kind of warm off-white colour. Again, just a sewable length. So I'm going to go from my nose to my fingertips. And just cut that one off. It's approximately the same size, so I'm going to fit it on the same needle. And this is also where your old offcuts are going to come into play. So hopefully you've got one of those, if not just cut a new one. But here's one of the threads that I cut off earlier, so it's just a bit of white. So what you're going to do is fold it in half, and we're going to use this as padding. So each border, if you can see from our original, you can see that the borders are a little bit kind of raised and padded. They've got a little bit of extra kind of heft. So that's what we're aiming for. And we do that with these offcuts. So I've got that folded in half. Now we're going to start down here at the base so that we can do this stem last. So what I'm going to do this time is we're going to stitch from right to left, and I'm going to push the needle away from me rather than towards me. This is just quite a bit easier because that way you can hold all your padding threads down. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be holding the threads down with my left thumb. And that'll just mean that they don't get in the way quite so much. So if you're left-handed, I guess you can reverse all of this. Yeah, however you feel comfortable stitching. And again, like there's no pressure to stitch in the same direction that I am, whatever feels comfortable. But that's how we're going to do it just in the video. So what I'm going to do is start off just by passing the needle underneath the coordinate there, in between those stitches. Leave this tail again. And we're going to hold all of those threads together with that left thumb. Now, just to secure it even further, what I'm going to do is put the needle through that fold of the thread. So we've got the folded offcut and the tail from this current thread, and that's going to be your padding. So you want at least 3 pieces of padding. You can have more, you can have fewer. I wouldn't go fewer than 2. You do want a little bit of heft because it also smooths out the border, and that's sort of part of the reason why you want to have a few threads as well, but have as many as you want. Now what we're going to do, again, it's just buttonhole stitch. So this time, instead of your loop coming down like that, we're just going to put the loop over the top. The loop always goes in the direction that you're working. So I've got it coming up around here and around, and I'm just going to put the needle underneath the coordinate and into the middle of that loop. So remember, the needle is just coming up in the center. You're not twisting it around or anything. Sometimes it just takes a minute to sort of wrap your head around this point, like doing it upside down. Yeah, sometimes you end up like accidentally adding little twists at the top. But remember, it's basically a simple loop. So you're just bringing the thread around in the direction that you're working. So round like that, and then just bring the needle up into the middle of it. You don't need to twist the needle around. You don't need to do anything like that. The needle just comes up into the middle of that loop. You're holding those threads nice and securely with your thumb. This time, rather than having your stitches further apart, often in a border, what you want to do is kind of cram as many in as possible. So you'd sort of put double the amount. Those sort of buttonhole stitches that we were doing back in here, you can see, remember I was sort of concentrating on making sure that there's a little bit of a gap in between them so that you can work back into them with your needle. But this time we want plenty of threads sitting really close to each other, plenty of stitches sitting really close to each other, because that's going to make it look much more solid and satiny and beautiful. And you really want to make sure that you can't see the padding threads underneath. You want that really nice, smooth border. Now when you get to the corner, all you want to do is add a couple more stitches. So just to make sure that you don't leave a bit of a gap, I'm just going to do sort of 3 or 4 in the same place, and that's going to bring the thread around sort of to the right, so that you're back at the right angle when you're heading on further. Just to make that a nice little curve there. Okay, so I don't need to change the thread yet, but it's always handy to kind of prepare in advance when you need to change your thread, particularly when you're doing the border. There's a really lovely, easy way to do it. So what you're going to do, because we've got all these padding threads, it's this really handy way to kind of start and finish your ends. So what I'm going to do is cut a new length of this thread that we're going to use in a little bit. Just cut it to have it ready, and I'm going to lay it along here, so add it to those padding threads. And then from there, I'm going to stitch over it. So you can see I've got a little sort of tail poking out. We'll fix that later. But so this way we're kind of taking care of weaving the end in before we've even started, because it's just going to be one of those padding threads. So I'm going to keep stitching, still using the old thread. This is just going to get it up to the point where we can switch them out. And look, I can still use this. It's not time to change it, but I'll just do it now so that you can see and we get the principle. So I've got about 1 centimetre of that, or just under 1/2 inch, all woven in. So what we can do then, I've unthreaded the needle, and I'm just going to pull this one along just to get rid of that last bit of the tail. There you go. So now it's all tucked in, and we can thread up this new one. Now I'm adding the old thread into that little bundle of padding threads, and we just start stitching with the new one. Just be careful you don't pull it too tight at this point, otherwise the end might pop out again. So now you've got a nice long thread again, and both your ends are taken care of. Now, when you reach the base here, we're going to go down to this little section. So I'll just go a little further and a little further, because we really want these ends to meet up. Right up so that they're right next to each other. Now what I'm going to do is just pass the needle underneath that stitch so that we've joined them together. And now they're all nice and tightly in there. Now just to bring it up, I'm going to take the needle underneath the coordinate. You can go over if you want to, just however it works. This bit doesn't matter too much. Now I'm going to buttonhole down along this stem towards the little circle. Okay, now we've reached a circle. We're just going to go around, and that's going to finish our leaf off. Now this is getting a little too short to use. It's only going to get in the way, so I'm just going to cut that section off. Again, we've covered it all with the threads. So we'll go around Again, remember when you're doing a border, you want to have plenty of stitches really close together, particularly in a tiny little circle like this, because we're aiming to kind of have them fan out a little bit. You want to make sure they're nice and close together around the base there. That way it'll sit a little flatter too. So you can see how many I'm putting in. Again, sometimes at this point when you're getting, you're just working over all of these threads, if the needle is catching a little bit on the contact, what you can do is just go take the needle in head first. I think that's gonna help me at the moment. When you're up in here working in between stitches, sometimes it helps to go in by the point first, but down around here I think it can be better to go in from that end. Tears your fingers up a little bit if you're pressing on the point, but that's needle lace for you. All right, so we're nearly done. Again, we're just going to bring this all the way around. To that final stitch. And that's our happy little leaf. So this one, remember that was just part of the bundle, so we can cut that off. But before we cut this one off, we need to take care of the end so nothing unravels. So what we're going to do is just kind of work it up. There's no sort of precise way to do this. I'm going to bring the needle up here. If your stitches are loose enough to kind of squeeze under a couple of these stitches, see how I'm just kind of going in underneath those buttonhole stitches? That's a possibility. That's a nice way to end it. If, however, those stitches are too tight, so say you can't quite push through, what you can do is just go underneath and just wind it around a couple of buttonhole stitches. And because we've put these so close together, you can see it's a little tight, a bit harder to kind of go through. So you can see I'm just winding it around just to make sure that you've got a bit of a tail so that none of your threads really unravel. We'll take that right down to the end. And there you go. So now you know you finished your stitches there and your thread's been taken care of right down to there. So you've got enough of a tail in, which means I can cut that right off. And that is every little stitch. And finally, we are on to the best, most exciting part of the entire process, which is taking your lace off the backing. So this is why we have the fabric folded into 4. That means because you've got your red threads on the back, your lace threads on the top, that means the only threads that are in between are red. So you're essentially safe to cut anything in there. And the other thing is, because the lace is so lovely and safe right at the top there, this does not need to be gentle. You can really rip. Often I recommend ripping because then it means you have fewer threads to kind of cut out later. We'll do another little cut. Keep it coming. There we go. Totally opened out. Pull some of those off. Ready. And now your leaf will come straight off. And there it is. Little wonky stem there. And that's your leaf. And you still have All of this absolutely intact. So you can make another one on the same piece. And that's it. So thank you so much for making a piece. If you've gotten this far, then I guess you've finished it, and that's brilliant. And I'm really thrilled. So thank you so much. Now the next step, if you could, please don't worry if your sampler is wonky. Don't worry if it's got weird edges. Don't worry if you can see the coordinate, if it's got threads hanging off it. Even if you didn't finish it, just send it to me. Send it to me anyway. So the way to do that, just so I'm not plastering my address all over the internet, what would be great is if you could send me a message. So either through Instagram direct message or an email if you've got my email address already, or there's a submission box on the website in the contact me section. You can send me a message there and I will send you back postal details. You can just stick them in an envelope. It's not going to be like, it'll just be the same as posting a letter. So hopefully I will be receiving your little beautiful leaf samplers soon. And again, I just want to say the biggest thank you to all of you for participating, and please know that you're doing something. You're participating in something that I think personally is really special. I think it's a really special thing to keep these techniques alive, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, and it's something that's the point of this entire project. Is hopefully you've got something out of it. You've enjoyed a little bit of stitching and you want to maybe introduce a little bit of needle lace into other things that you're going to do, or not, and just enjoy it as a process. It's a beautiful thing to do. It's a lovely, meditative, mindful process, and I'm really pleased to have so many people who have expressed their interest in it, and I can't wait to get all of your samples and to join them all together and to see them as a vast, overwhelming, beautiful scattered leaf tapestry. So thank you, get in contact, and yeah, send me those little leaves. Thanks guys.